If you're hearing this, it means you've survived longer than most. But let me tell you right now, this isn't over. It's far from over. The world we knew, the one built on convenience, technology, and connection, is gone. A silent war is unfolding, and we're all caught in its crossfire. Let me explain. This isn't your typical disaster. No bombs, no tanks, no missiles. What's happening right now is far more dangerous. A worldwide cyberattack, coordinated and merciless, has taken down everything. Power grids, financial systems, hospitals, military defenses, it's all gone. The lights have gone out, and the systems we trusted to keep us safe have crumbled. This isn't a glitch or some temporary outage. This is deliberate. This is calculated. Hackers have breached global networks in ways we couldn't have imagined. They've seized control of the internet, disrupted supply chains, and made sure that anyone who relies on technology, which, let's be honest, is all of us, is left scrambling for survival. Here's the situation. The power grids are failing everywhere. Major cities are in complete darkness. Hospitals are unable to operate. Communication networks have collapsed. Governments, they're paralyzed. There are no emergency broadcasts from officials, no reassurance from world leaders. Whatever plans they had in place have been rendered useless. We are on our own now. I need you to understand the gravity of this moment. This isn't just an inconvenience. This is a collapse, and it's global. No country has been spared. The very systems that held society together have been ripped apart. Banks have been frozen. Your money is gone, wiped out in seconds. Supermarkets have been looted, their shelves empty. Gas stations have run dry. There's no one coming to fix this. At least, not yet. If you're still in a city, you need to leave. Don't wait. Urban areas are turning into chaos zones. Desperation is setting in, and people are doing whatever they can to survive. Supplies are running out, and violence is escalating. Move now while you still can. Pack only what you need. Water, food, medicine. Leave the rest behind. Your survival depends on it. But don't think the countryside is completely safe either. The hackers aren't just targeting cities. They're using the internet to track and manipulate people. If you still have access to any device, any connection to the web, consider it compromised. Every search you make, every message you send, it's all being monitored. The digital world is no longer a tool for us. It's a weapon against us. Stay offline, stay invisible. This attack isn't just about crashing systems. It's about control. Whoever is behind this has thought of everything. They've hit us where it hurts most, our reliance on technology, and they're exploiting our weakness. They've thrown the world into chaos, and they're watching us unravel. This isn't some random act of rebellion. This is war, and right now, we're losing. I know this sounds bleak. I know it feels like there's no hope. But if you're listening to this, it means you're still here. And as long as we're still here, we have a chance. It's not much, but it's something. We need to hold on to that. We need to stick together, even when everything around us is falling apart. You're going to have to make decisions you never thought you'd face. Who to trust, where to go, how to survive. It's not going to be easy. In fact, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. But you're not alone in this. There are others out there, just like you, fighting to stay alive. Find them, support each other. That's the only way we make it through this. I'll be here as long as I can. This station, this signal, it's fragile. I don't know how much longer it'll hold, but as long as it does, I'll keep broadcasting. I'll share whatever information I can gather, any updates on what's happening, and advice on how to stay safe. Keep your radio close. Don't give up. This isn't the end, not yet. But we're at a crossroads, and how we move forward will decide everything. Stay strong, stay smart, and remember, we're all in this together. The attack didn't happen all at once. It started subtly, like a crack in the foundation that no one noticed until it was too late. At first, people thought it was just glitches. ATMs weren't working, credit card payments were declining, some phones couldn't connect to networks. It was inconvenient, but manageable. Nobody could have predicted how quickly those small cracks would turn into an avalanche. Within hours, the financial systems were crippled. Banks reported outages across the globe. People flooded ATMs desperate to withdraw their money, but the machines were empty. Accounts had been wiped clean, savings, pensions, investments, gone in the blink of an eye. For most, that's when the panic began. The chaos spread like wildfire. Without access to money, stores became battlegrounds. People fought over basic supplies, water bottles, canned goods, batteries. Within a day, shelves were cleared, and shop owners boarded up their doors, fearing the mobs. In some places, the military tried to step in, but they were overwhelmed. There were simply too many people, too much desperation. The thin veneer of order that society relied on had shattered. But the financial system wasn't the only target. Power grids were hit next. Entire cities plunged into darkness. No lights, no heat, no functioning traffic systems. Planes were grounded. Trains came to a halt, and highways became parking lots as fuel supplies ran dry. The world stood still, and in that stillness, fear set in. I've spoken to people who witnessed the first wave firsthand. A man called in yesterday, his voice trembling. He was in Los Angeles when the power went out. He described how the city changed almost instantly. Without lights, the streets became unrecognizable. People stumbled in the dark, using their phones as flashlights until the batteries died. Car accidents clogged every major intersection. By the second night, the looting had begun. He said the sound of breaking glass and distant screams became the soundtrack of the city. It's like the city turned into a beast, he told me, and it's hungry. And then there's Anna, a nurse who called me earlier today. She was working at a hospital when their systems failed. She described the chaos as they scrambled to keep patients alive without power. Life support machines stopped working. The electronic medical records were inaccessible. They couldn't even call for help because the phone lines were down. We did what we could, she said, but it wasn't enough. We lost so many people. Her voice cracked, and I could hear the guilt weighing on her. We had to choose. Who gets the oxygen tanks? Who gets the last doses of medicine? How do you make those choices? This is what the first wave looked like. Panic, confusion, and loss. But even in the middle of that chaos, there were glimpses of humanity. Strangers helping each other, sharing food, giving rides, lighting candles for one another. Small acts of kindness that reminded us we haven't completely lost who we are. Not yet. But here's the thing, the hackers knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't just an attack on infrastructure, it was an attack on trust. Trust in systems, in governments, in each other. They targeted the very things that hold society together, and they broke them, piece by piece. And once the trust was gone, chaos took over. The bigger question, the one that keeps me awake at night, is why? Why do this? Why tear the world apart? Is it for power, control, or is it something worse? Something we haven't figured out yet? I don't have answers for that. Not yet. But I'll keep asking the questions, and I'll keep sharing what I know. Here's what you need to focus on right now. Survival. Forget about what you've lost. Your money, your possessions, your routines, none of that matters anymore. What matters is staying alive. If you have supplies, ration them carefully. If you don't, find a way to get them. Water, food, medicine, these are your priorities now. Not convenience, not comfort. Survival. Avoid large groups if you can. Crowds attract attention. And in times like these, attention can be dangerous. Stick to people you trust. Real trust, not the superficial kind. You'll need each other in the days ahead. And one more thing, stay away from screens. I know it's tempting to turn on your phone or computer to try and connect with the world, to look for answers, but the hackers are watching. Every keystroke, every message, every search, it's all being tracked. They're using our dependency against us. The internet isn't safe anymore. Treat it like a minefield. This isn't going to be easy. It's not supposed to be. We're in uncharted territory, and the only way through it is together. I'll keep broadcasting for as long as I can, sharing what I know and what I hear from people like you. You're not alone in this, even if it feels like it. For now, stay safe, Stay alert and stay human. We're still here. That has to count for something. By now, you've probably realized that this isn't just happening in your town, your city, or even your country. This is everywhere. The scale of the attack is staggering, unlike anything humanity has ever faced. We've seen disasters before, natural, political, economic, but this is something else entirely. This is a deliberate dismantling of the world as we know it. Reports from all over the globe paint the same picture. London, Paris, Tokyo, New York, they've all gone dark. Cities that were once hubs of power and progress have become shadows of themselves. Airports are shut down, ports are frozen, and communication networks are completely offline. Governments everywhere are scrambling, trying to contain the chaos, but the truth is, they're failing. One of the most chilling aspects of this attack is how precisely it was executed. These hackers didn't just pull a plug. They've dismantled entire systems with surgical precision. Power grids were their first target. Without electricity, everything else crumbles. But they didn't stop there. They infiltrated transportation networks, taking down air traffic control systems, causing planes to be grounded indefinitely. They hacked into hospitals, locking out medical staff from critical systems. Even military defenses weren't spared. It's as if the hackers knew exactly where to strike to maximize destruction. And then there's the financial system. Imagine this. You wake up one morning, check your bank account, and it's empty. Not just yours, everyone's. Billions of dollars wiped out of existence. Savings accounts, retirement funds, investments, gone. Some banks tried to deny it at first, claiming it was a temporary outage. But as the hours turned into days, the truth became clear. The money wasn't coming back, and with it, people's sense of security vanished too. Let me share with you what's happening in other parts of the world, based on the reports I've been able to piece together. In Europe, there's widespread panic. Without electricity, winter is becoming deadly. Families are burning furniture to stay warm. In some areas, local governments are trying to organize relief efforts, but they're overwhelmed. In Asia, the situation is equally grim. In Japan, trains have stopped running, and food supplies are dwindling. In India, there are reports of mass migrations as people flee cities in search of resources. Africa, South America, it's the same story. Chaos, fear, survival. And what about here? Well, you already know what's happening in the streets. You've seen it. The looting, the violence, the desperation. But there's something else. A sense of unease that's harder to define. People are starting to realize that the systems they relied on weren't as strong as they thought. The safety nets we all took for granted have been torn apart, leaving us exposed. What makes this even more terrifying is the lack of communication. Governments aren't issuing statements. There are no emergency broadcasts, no reassurances from world leaders. It's like they've gone silent. Some speculate that the hackers have cut them off too. Others believe the governments are trying to regroup, formulating plans behind closed doors. But whatever the reason, the silence is deafening. And then there are the conspiracy theories. People are desperate for answers, and in the absence of information, speculation runs wild. Some say this is the work of a rogue state, a cyber attack launched by a foreign power. Others believe it's a shadowy organization, a group of hackers with a grudge against the modern world. And then there are those who think this is bigger than humanity, that something otherworldly is behind it. I don't have answers, not yet, but I'll keep digging. We need to know who's doing this and why. Here's something else to think about. This attack isn't just physical, it's psychological. The hackers aren't just targeting infrastructure, they're targeting us. Our fear, our distrust, our need for answers, they're using it all against us. This isn't just about crashing systems, it's about breaking us as a society, and if we're not careful, it's going to work. But there's something they didn't count on, our resilience. People are scared, yes, but they're also fighting back. In small towns and neighborhoods, communities are coming together. They're sharing resources, protecting each other, and finding ways to adapt. It's not perfect. It's messy and desperate, but it's something. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, humanity has a way of pushing through. Here's what you need to do right now. Start thinking long term. The initial shock of the attack has passed, but the real challenge is just beginning. Supplies are going to run out, and the systems that brought us food, water, and medicine aren't coming back anytime soon. If you haven't already, find a safe place. Stock up on essentials. Connect with people you trust. And above all, stay vigilant. The chaos isn't over. In many ways, it's just beginning. I'll leave you with this. It's easy to feel powerless right now, to think there's nothing we can do against an enemy we can't see. But that's not true. We still have choices. We can still fight. Not with weapons, but with resilience, with community, with determination. The world may be broken, but we're not. Not yet. It's strange how quickly the human mind adapts to chaos. Just a few days ago, the world seemed stable, secure. We went about our lives, trusting that the systems in place would always function, that the ground beneath our feet would never shift. And now, here we are, standing in the wreckage of that illusion. The hardest part? Realizing it wasn't as solid as we thought. If you're still listening, I know you're feeling it too. The exhaustion, the fear, the constant buzz in your head that won't let you rest. You're not alone in that. I've been hearing from people all over, and everyone is saying the same thing. This isn't just a physical attack. It's mental. It's emotional. It's like the hackers reached into our very sense of reality and ripped it apart. Think about what we've lost. It's not just power grids or bank accounts. It's the comfort of routine, the certainty that tomorrow will look something like today. Without that, people are breaking down. Anxiety, depression, paranoia, they're spreading as fast as the chaos in the streets. And it's no wonder. When the world stops making sense, the mind struggles to keep up. I spoke to a woman named Carla yesterday. She's in her late 40s, living alone in a small apartment in what used to be a quiet suburb. She told me about the moment the power went out in her neighborhood. At first, she thought it was just a temporary outage. She lit a few candles, made a plan to call the utility company in the morning. But when morning came, nothing worked. No phone lines, no internet, no news. She waited, hoping it would pass. And when it didn't, that's when the panic set in. Carla said she hasn't slept in 3 days. Every noise outside her window makes her jump. She doesn't trust her neighbors anymore, not after hearing about the break-ins down the street. She told me she feels like she's losing her mind, that the silence is the worst part. It's like the world is holding its breath, she said, and I'm just waiting for it to exhale. That feeling, that waiting, that helplessness, it's everywhere. People are scared to go outside, but they're just as scared to stay in. They don't know what's coming next. And the not knowing is eating away at them. This is what the hackers wanted. This is what they planned. It's not just about dismantling systems. It's about dismantling us. And yet, even in the middle of all this, there are moments of clarity, of perspective. I spoke to another man, Tony, who's been living in the countryside since before the attack. He told me something that stuck with me. He said, this whole thing has made me realize how much time I wasted. I used to sit in front of a screen for hours, every day, scrolling through nonsense, ignoring the people around me. Now I'd give anything just to have a conversation with someone, face to face. That's the irony of it all, isn't it? We spent so much time connected to our devices that we forgot how to connect with each other. And now that those devices are gone, we're realizing just how much we took for granted. The quiet moments, the small joys, the things that don't rely on an internet connection, but reflection only gets us so far. The reality is people are struggling. The mental toll of this crisis is compounding the physical one, and it's not just individuals, it's entire families, entire communities, parents who can't explain to their children why the lights won't come back on, friends who turn on each other out of desperation, strangers who once would have helped each other now passing by in fear. I've been thinking a lot about what it takes to survive something like this. It's not just about food or water or shelter, though those things are crucial. It's about mindset. It's about resilience, the ability to adapt, to keep going even when everything feels hopeless. And that's not something you can store in a bunker or pack in a survival bag. That's something you have to build within yourself. Here's what I want you to remember. You're stronger than you think. You've already made it this far, and that's not nothing. The world may be falling apart, but you haven't. Not yet. And as long as you're still here, there's a chance to rebuild. Not just the world, but yourself. Start small. Focus on what you can control. Take stock of your surroundings. Create a routine, even if it's just waking up at the same time every day or eating at regular intervals. Find something, anything, that reminds you of who you are. A photograph, a piece of music, a memory. Hold on to it. Let it anchor you, and talk to someone if you can. A neighbor, a friend, a stranger on the road. Connection is what keeps us human. It's what the hackers can't take from us. The world is trying to break us, but we don't have to let it. We can still fight back, not with weapons, but with kindness, with compassion, with the strength to keep going. Amid the chaos and destruction, there's one thing keeping people going, each other. In times like these, survival isn't just about having the right supplies or being in the right place. It's about the connections we make, the people we trust, the communities we build. It's hard, but it's happening. Even in the darkest corners, humanity finds a way to hold on. Let me share a few stories I've heard over the past couple of days. They're not flashy or dramatic, but they matter because they're about people stepping up for one another when everything else has fallen apart. There's a neighborhood about 30 miles west of here. Before the attack, it was just a quiet suburb, the kind of place where people waved at each other from their driveways but rarely talked. When the power went out and supplies started running low, things got tense. At first, everyone stayed inside, suspicious of their neighbors. But then, a couple named Joe and Linda decided to do something about it. They walked door to door, checking on people, asking if they had enough food, water, or medicine. They found out that one house had a stockpile of canned goods, another had a generator, and someone down the street was a retired nurse. Within a day, the neighborhood came together. They pooled their resources, set up a small community kitchen, and organized shifts to keep watch at night. It's not perfect, and there have been arguments, who gets what, who does the most work, but they're surviving. More than that, they're proving that we're stronger together than we are alone. Then there's the story of a group of strangers who found themselves stranded on a rural highway after their cars ran out of gas. Most of them didn't know each other, just travelers caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. At first, they were scared, unsure of what to do. But instead of panicking, they decided to stick together. They scavenged what they could from their vehicles, blankets, snacks, water, and made a small camp. Someone found a map in their glove box, and they plotted a route to the nearest town. It wasn't close, and the walk wasn't easy, but they made it. Together. These aren't isolated stories. I've been hearing more and more of them, people sharing what little they have, protecting one another, refusing to give in to fear. It's a reminder that even in the worst circumstances, we're capable of incredible kindness and resilience. But let's be real. It's not all goodwill and cooperation out there. There are plenty of people taking advantage of the chaos. Looters, gangs, those who see this collapse as an opportunity to seize power. In some areas, the strong are preying on the weak, and it's brutal. That's the reality we're facing. If you're in a community, if you found a group of people you can trust, count yourself lucky. And if you haven't, don't give up. There are still good people out there. Sometimes it takes a leap of faith to find them. A knock on a door, a shared meal, A willingness to believe that not everyone is out to take what's yours. For those of you trying to build something, whether it's a community plan or just a sense of normalcy, here are a few things I've learned from the people I've spoken to. First, communication is key. Even if it's just a daily check-in, make sure everyone's on the same page. Trust is fragile, and the best way to maintain it is through transparency. Second, ration wisely. Resources are limited, and they'll run out faster than you think. Plan for the long haul, not just the next few days. If you have seeds, plant them. If you can preserve food, do it. Every small step you take now will make a big difference later. Third, assign roles. Everyone has something to contribute, whether it's cooking, guarding, gathering supplies, or caring for others. Giving people responsibilities not only helps the group, it also gives individuals a sense of purpose, which is crucial in times like these. And finally, stay alert. Communities are targets. The bigger your group, the more attention it attracts. Make sure you're prepared to defend yourselves if necessary. It's a harsh truth, but it's better to face it than to ignore it. I know it's hard to trust people right now. The attack has made us suspicious, guarded. But trust is what's going to get us through this. Not blind trust, earned trust. Look for the helpers, the problem solvers, the ones who put others before themselves. Those are the people you want by your side. I don't know what's going to happen next. None of us do. But I do know this. We're stronger together. The hackers may have taken down our systems, but they can't take away our humanity. They can't take away our ability to care for one another, to work together, to survive. As the days stretch on, a question hangs in the air. Where are the people in charge? Where are the governments, the military, the organizations we thought would protect us when everything fell apart? For many of you, the silence has been deafening. No updates from officials, no relief trucks rolling in, no emergency plans unfolding. Just nothing. But here's the truth. Governments haven't disappeared. They're still out there scrambling to regain control. The problem is, they're in just as much chaos as the rest of us. From what I've been able to piece together, they've been hit just as hard, if not harder, than we have. Their systems are down, their communication networks have been compromised, and their resources are stretched beyond breaking. Let me give you an example. I've heard reports from the East Coast, Washington, D.C., specifically. The city is effectively paralyzed. Military bases were some of the first targets, and their defenses were breached within hours of the initial attack. The hackers took control of critical systems, air defense, missile guidance, even basic logistics. Troops have been left in the dark, unable to coordinate, unable to act, and without a functional chain of command, even the most well-trained forces are powerless. It's the same story across the globe. In Europe, NATO has reportedly been crippled. Their communications were infiltrated, their strategies leaked, their operations disrupted. In Asia, countries like China and Japan are struggling to maintain order as their infrastructure crumbles. Even smaller nations, ones that might have been overlooked in a traditional conflict, haven't been spared. This is total warfare, and no one is immune. So what about relief efforts? Are there any? The short answer is yes, but they're limited, disorganized, and in many cases, failing to reach the people who need them most. I've heard of food drops in rural areas, medical supplies being airlifted to critical zones, and attempts to restore power in key locations. But for every success story, there are dozens of failures. Supplies are hijacked, transport routes are blocked, and aid workers are overwhelmed. I spoke to a former National Guard officer who's been working with a small relief team in the Midwest. He told me about the challenges they're facing. Without reliable communication, they're essentially working blind. They don't know where the need is greatest or how to get there safely. And even when they do manage to deliver supplies, they're often met with desperation that borders on violence. People aren't thinking clearly, he said. They see a truck full of food or water, and they lose it. They'll do whatever it takes to get what they need. You can't blame them, but it makes our job almost impossible. And yet there are glimpses of hope. In some places, local governments and communities are stepping up where national efforts have failed. I've heard of mayors organizing neighborhood watch programs, of small towns creating barter systems to distribute resources, of teachers setting up makeshift schools to give kids a sense of normalcy. These efforts are small, but they matter. They're proof that even when the larger systems fail, people can find ways to take care of each other. But let's not sugarcoat this. The situation is dire. The longer this goes on, the harder it will be to recover. Infrastructure doesn't rebuild itself. Food and medicine don't appear out of thin air, and without a coordinated response, the cracks in society will only deepen. Which brings me to the question no one wants to ask. Is the government even capable of fixing this? The scale of the attack is so massive, so unprecedented, that it's hard to imagine a way back. Even if they manage to restore some systems, the trust is gone. The belief that our leaders could protect us, that the systems we relied on were unbreakable, that's been shattered. And rebuilding trust is a lot harder than rebuilding infrastructure. Still, there are whispers of larger efforts underway. A few military units are reportedly regrouping, trying to establish secure bases. Some tech experts, those who haven't gone dark, are working to counter the hackers, though the progress has been painfully slow, and there are rumors, unconfirmed but persistent, of an international task force forming to address the crisis. It's hard to know how much of this is true, but it's something to hold on to. A flicker of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape. Here's what you need to know. Don't wait for help. If it comes, great, but don't depend on it. Focus on what you can do right now with the resources and people you have. Build your own systems, however small they may be. Organize with your community. Create your own relief efforts. Because the truth is, we might be on our own for a while. And one last thing, stay informed, but stay skeptical. If you hear about government relief or military operations, verify it before you act. The hackers have already shown they're willing to spread disinformation to sow chaos. Don't let them manipulate you. Trust your instincts and trust the people you know. This isn't the world we wanted, but it's the one we've got. And it's up to us to navigate it, one step at a time. Let's talk about the why, the how. Because as we've watched the world unravel, one question keeps coming up. How did this happen? How did the systems we thought were unbreakable, financial networks, power grids, military defenses, fall apart so quickly? And who has the power to pull off something this massive, this precise? I've been piecing together information from various sources, scientists, cybersecurity experts, even whispers from people who used to work in high-level positions. And while there's still a lot we don't know, a few things are starting to take shape. First, let's address the scale. A cyber attack of this magnitude isn't something that happens overnight. This has been in the works for years, maybe even decades. Every line of code, every vulnerability exploited, it was all planned. The attackers didn't just stumble across a few weak spots. They mapped out the entire digital ecosystem, identified its pressure points, and then struck with surgical precision. From what I've gathered, this isn't the work of a lone hacker or even a small group. We're talking about an operation that required an army of people, programmers, engineers, strategists, working together, likely across multiple countries. This was a coordinated effort, the kind of thing that only a nation-state or a highly organized and well-funded group could pull off. And here's where things get even more unsettling. Some experts believe the hackers didn't just attack systems. They created entirely new tools to do it. These aren't your average viruses or ransomware. We're talking about advanced algorithms capable of learning, adapting, and even disguising themselves. It's like they've weaponized artificial intelligence, turning our own technology against us. One theory I've heard is that the attackers used a method called supply chain infiltration. Essentially, they didn't attack the systems directly. Instead, they planted malicious code in the software updates that companies and governments rely on. When those updates were installed, boom, the doors were wide open. And the terrifying part? This kind of infiltration is almost impossible to detect until it's too late. Another theory is that this wasn't just a cyber attack. Some scientists think it was paired with an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP. If you're not familiar, an EMP is a burst of electromagnetic energy that can fry electronic circuits, effectively rendering devices useless. Normally, EMPs are associated with nuclear weapons, but there are other ways to generate them. If the hackers manage to deploy even a small-scale EMP in key locations, it could explain why entire regions went dark so quickly. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. Who's behind this? Governments? Rogue organizations? A new kind of cyber-terrorist group? There's no shortage of theories. Some people think this is the work of a major world power, Russia, China, or the United States itself, turning on its own systems in some sort of false flag operation. Others believe it's a decentralized network of hackers, a kind of anarchist movement determined to bring down modern society. And then there are the more outlandish theories. I've heard people say this is the beginning of a new Cold War, a covert battle for control of the internet. Others claim it's a message from artificial intelligence itself, warning humanity to stop relying on technology before it's too late. As far-fetched as some of these ideas sound, in a world like this, who's to say what's impossible? One thing is clear. Whoever's behind this, they knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't just about causing chaos for the sake of it. There's a purpose here, a goal. We just don't know what it is yet. Are they trying to control us? To wipe the slate clean and start over? Or are they simply proving a point that our reliance on technology has made us vulnerable? What's even more chilling is that this might not be the end. Some scientists believe this attack was just the first phase. They point out that many of the world's satellites are still operational for now. If the hackers gain control of those, we could be looking at a whole new level of devastation. Imagine GPS systems being manipulated, satellites crashing into one another, even weapon systems being activated remotely. It's a terrifying thought, but one we need to be prepared for. So what's the solution? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some experts are calling for a complete reset of global systems, starting from scratch, building new networks that are more secure and less centralized. Others believe the answer lies in counterattacks, using our own cyber capabilities to strike back. But both of these options are easier said than done, and in the meantime, we're left to fend for ourselves. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Yes, the situation is dire. Yes, the attackers are powerful, organized, and ahead of us at every turn. But they're not invincible. Every system has a weakness. Every code has a flaw. And if there's one thing humanity has proven time and time again, it's that we're resourceful. We adapt. We fight back. There are people out there working on solutions. Scientists, engineers, even hackers who've turned against their own. They might be quiet now, but they're out there. And when the time comes, they'll strike back. For now, stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember, no system is perfect. Not theirs and not ours. There's always a way forward, even if we can't see it yet. If you're still listening, you've made it this far. And that's no small thing. The world may be in ruins, but you're here, and that means there's still a chance to rebuild, a chance to survive, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to create something better than what we had before. Let's talk about what comes next. Because the truth is, we can't go back. The world we knew is gone, and no amount of wishing or waiting will bring it back. The systems we relied on, the technology that made our lives so comfortable, they were more fragile than we realized. This attack didn't just destroy those systems, it exposed their flaws. And now we have to face a harsh reality. If we want to rebuild, we need to do it differently. I've been hearing from people who are already starting that process. Small groups scattered across the country, figuring out how to survive and thrive in this new world. They're not waiting for governments to step in. They're taking matters into their own hands. And while it's messy and imperfect, it's a start. In one town, I heard about a group of farmers who have come together to create a shared food supply. They're using old-fashioned methods, plows, hand tools, anything that doesn't rely on power or machines. They're teaching others how to grow crops, how to preserve food, how to survive without supermarkets. It's slow work, but it's working. People are eating, people are surviving. In another community, a group of engineers and mechanics has started rebuilding basic infrastructure. They've rigged up solar panels to power water pumps. They're repairing old radios to keep communication alive. They've even managed to build a small wind turbine out of scrap metal. It's not much, but it's proof that we can still innovate, even with limited resources. And then there are the educators, teachers, librarians, anyone with knowledge to share. They're creating makeshift schools, teaching kids the skills they'll need to navigate this new world. It's not about algebra or history anymore. It's about survival skills, critical thinking, and most importantly, hope. Because if there's one thing we need to hold on to, it's hope. But rebuilding isn't just about infrastructure or survival. It's about redefining what kind of world we want to live in. And that's the question we're all going to have to answer. Do we try to recreate what we had before, knowing how vulnerable it was, or do we build something new, something stronger, something better? I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. We can't afford to make the same mistakes. We can't build a world that relies entirely on systems we don't understand, systems that can be taken down with a single line of code. We need to prioritize resilience over convenience, community over isolation. We need to remember that the greatest resource we have isn't technology, it's each other. As we move forward, there are a few things to keep in mind. First, collaboration is key. No one person, no one group can rebuild alone. We need each other, our skills, our knowledge, our support. The more we work together, the stronger we'll be. Second, we need to rethink our relationship with technology. It's not about rejecting it completely, it's about using it wisely. Building systems that are decentralized, transparent, and secure. Systems that serve us, not the other way around. And finally, we need to hold on to hope. Because no matter how dark things seem, humanity has a way of finding its way forward. We've faced disasters before and we've come out the other side. This time won't be any different, as long as we don't lose sight of what matters. If you're listening to this, you're already part of the solution. By surviving, by caring, by holding on. You're proving that we're not finished yet, that we're still here. And as long as we're still here, there's a future worth fighting for. So what's next for you? Maybe it's finding others and starting a community. Maybe it's teaching someone a skill or offering a helping hand. Or maybe it's just making it through another day. Whatever it is, remember that every small step you take is part of something bigger, something that's still worth believing in. This is the last broadcast I'll be making. The signal won't hold much longer, and there are others who need this equipment more than I do. But before I go, I want to leave you with one final thought. We didn't choose this. None of us did. But how we respond, that's up to us. We can choose to let this break us, or we can choose to rise, to build, to hope. If you've heard my voice this far, then I know you're still out there. Keep fighting, keep surviving, and remember, we haven't lost yet. As we wrap up today's broadcast, I want to leave you with this thought. Despite the darkness we face, despite everything we've lost, there's still hope. We're still here. And as long as we keep moving forward, keep building, keep remembering each other, we're not truly lost. No matter what the world looks like around us, there's always something worth fighting for. Always something worth remembering. So let's keep going, together. Even when things feel uncertain, remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. We might not have the past, but we have today. And that's enough to make tomorrow worth living for. Thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, if it helped you feel connected, or maybe just a little less alone, please do me a favor. Like this video, share it with others, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything to us, And if you want to hear more of these daily broadcasts, you can also support us by clicking the join button on our channel. Every bit of your support helps us keep going, keep sharing, and keep telling the stories that matter. Until next time, keep safe, keep strong, and remember, even in the silence, we are still here. You're still here. And that's all we need to keep moving forward. See you soon.